All right. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Heromakers Podcast. And I feel like a little bit like Groundhog Day. Like I'm saying the same introduction each time, and I need to start venturing out. Do you think I need to like get some kind of other intro going on here? I don't know.
No,
Tell a
it's
joke,
actually,
maybe.
like comforting because it's really
It's
because it's
familiar.
who you are and
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, he would like take off his while he's saying he's taking off his sweater, and it's just really sweet. I'm like that.
It's
I'm gonna be
comforting.
like the modern day Mr. Rogers. So Anne, I'm very excited about our guest that we have on today, Samantha Tan, who is a race car driver. Hi, Samantha.
Hi.
Hi. And Samantha, I'm very excited to talk to you because the only thing I really know about race car driving is the Indianapolis 500 because I grew up in Indiana, and that's not the kind of race car driving that you do. But I'm also excited because I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I was telling her about that we were going to talk to you, and so she says, okay, the first thing that you have to ask her is how fast she drives in the cars. So that's my first question to you. How fast do these cars go?
It's funny because I think I get that question the most often, but it does depend on like which track we go to because, some straights are longer than others. But I think typically, for example, the track in Texas called Coda, there's a really, really long straight, probably hitting speeds up to like 270 kilometers per hour.
Oh, kilometers. So that's
Kilometers,
okay.
not miles.
Okay. I can't do the math in my head of what that would be miles per hour, but fast. And then the second question I have to ask you is, have you ever been injured in a car race?
I have, but it was completely my own fault. So they teach you, like, if you think you're going to crash or you're going to crash, like, obviously fight until the very, very last second and then pull both your hands in and your feet in so that they don't, get tangled in the pedals or the steering wheel. But me, I kept my foot on the brake pedal when I hit the wall. I hit the wall at 100 miles per hour. This was in Road America, Wisconsin. I just came in a little bit too fast, went off track, tried to come back on, and the car just like whipped into the wall. So I sprained my ankle. But honestly, like after seeing the car and after seeing the crash video, it was like, wow, like the car is so safe nowadays that I actually was able to like walk out with just a sprained ankle, which was also completely my fault. So that's the only time I've been injured.
Okay. Oh, a sprained ankle. Yeah. Okay. So Samantha, so now that I've asked her 2 questions, I feel like, okay, we can move on. But that's helpful to those of us who just don't know much about car racing. Okay, so you have actually your own racing team called ST Racing, and this is something I'm learning. You don't do like NASCAR or Formula One racing. You do like high performance BMW racing. So you're gonna have to tell us like all about that too. But why don't you first tell us about, and your championship, because you just won a 24-hour race in Dubai, a 24-hour race in a car, which you know about too. And you're 23, so you're amazingly young. You're kind of like this entrepreneur, really go-getter, and just shattering kind of my whole stereotype of racing. Okay, so Samantha, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of where you grew up and how you got into racing?
Of course. So I grew up in a small town north of Toronto called Gormley, or more generally known as Stouffville to other Canadians. As a kid, I always loved going fast, whether it was riding passenger on the way to school with my dad in his old M3 or drifting around the front of my house in this little Power Wheels Jeep that I used to have. I didn't always know that I wanted to be a race car driver because school was always just like super important to my parents. So I really like focused on that for the majority of my life. I only really started getting serious about racing when I was around 14 years old. But again, like I always had an interest in cars. I attended the Ferrari driving experience at Circuit Mont Tremblant at the age of 14. I was the youngest driver to ever participate in it. And at the end of the day, I got to sit passenger in this 458 Challenge race car with a pro driver who took me on a hot lap. And needless to say, it was a life-changing experience. The like intense acceleration, the braking, and the cornering G-forces just put the biggest smile on my face. And it was like that moment where I decided that I wanted to pursue racing as a career.
When you were 14.
Yeah, when I was 14.
Okay. And what kind of racing, what kind of cars were those?
When I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So that driving experience was basically I got to drive around in Ferrari's new cars that they had just, I guess, released. So,
Yeah.
like the 458, the F12, and I think the FF. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
This is like a dream for a lot of people. People will
Yeah.
pay big money to get inside of a Ferrari and drive around a track.
I'm very, very lucky.
Right? Okay. So your dad was kind of one of the big the people in your life who kind of pushed you in the direction of getting more involved in that, sounds like, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But
He was definitely like a very big influence in my life.
yeah. Does he do racing as well, or he just kind of as a side thing enjoys
He never raced himself. He was always like into racing. So like as a kid he would take me to watch like Formula One races at our local dealer or something. And he would go to track days and I would sit passenger. So he was always into racing, but he never raced himself. And now he's just kind of like living vicariously through me.
Yes. Okay, so 14, you kind of thought, this is amazing. I want to do this. I want to explore this. And then so what happened from then until now, until kind of you getting more established?
Yeah, so I really started racing when I was 16 years old after I'd gotten my learner's permit. I started regional racing in the US in the National Autosport Association. My first race car ever was like a fully stripped down 1991 Honda Civic. No ABS, no stability management, no traction control, and obviously no AC either. And it was like the first time I'd ever experienced that type of car because I was used to just regular street cars and going on the track with my dad. And I remember sliding off track during my first session because I wasn't in the right seating position and I couldn't brake hard enough. And I was super embarrassed. But since that, I ended up with 3 podiums in my first 6 races.
Wow.
Ran my first full racing season that same year in the Canadian Touring Car Championship. I ran a Mini Cooper S JCW with Team Octane and was awarded Rookie of the Year with my 5th out of 22 car placement in the touring class. The year after, I moved to Pirelli World Challenge, which is the series I've been in for the past 5 years. The following year with Kinetic Motorsports in a Kia Forte. And, over the years, the competition steadily became more and more fierce as I moved through the classes. And, I remember my confidence kind of decreasing as I competed against more experienced drivers. And it took a lot of mental work, physical training, and dedication to get where I am today. And, the biggest lesson I learned through this was, focus on what I can control. And I think that's contributed significantly to my success as a driver and team owner.
Yeah. And you just graduated from college.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that's like a whole another full-time job right there. What was your degree in?
I finished in economics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and is 23, is this like the typical age for a race car driver? Are you young? What are the stats there?
I'd say I'm pretty young in the sports car racing industry, at least. I know a lot of racers that start when they're like super young, like 4 or 5 years old in karting. But you actually can't get an FIA like racing license until you're 16 years old now, I think. But I also know racers that are 65 and older. So there's definitely no age limit in sports car racing at least. Is different for Formula One and Indy, but overall, I've seen a large range.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations on your degree.
Oh, thank you.
But how do you do that on top of all the racing and having your own team?
Yeah, I honestly, it was so difficult trying to balance my school and my racing because, so many times where I would fly out for a race on Thursday and, come back Sunday night, I'd have like a final on the Monday or something. And it was just so crazy trying to study in between sessions and really manage my time effectively. But, during those 5 years it took me to finish my degree, I definitely picked up some time management skills and luckily have the best friends ever who, were able to take notes for me or go to lecture for me. And yeah, it was a lot, but I'm so proud to have finished my degree.
Wow, that takes determination. So, wow. And yeah, determination. So I was like, I'd like to hear more about your parents. What does your mom think?
Yeah, my mom actually doesn't come to my races. Not because, she doesn't support me, but I think she's just being the typical mom. She's worried about me. She's scared. Even though she knows like how safe the cars are nowadays. Doesn't help that the last time she came to one of my events, as soon as she got to the track and she like walked up to the fence, I actually got hit by another car. And that rarely happens, so it was just like so crazy that she like as she walks in she just sees me getting hit and at that moment she was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. you know but yeah, she definitely supports me, but she doesn't come to my races.
So Samantha, and is it a pretty tight knit community among the race car drivers, or like are your friendship circles kind of in that area? Are they more like school, other students?
Yeah, I think now most of my friends are within just the car community and not just the racing community. Of course, I have like many friends within the racing community, but I've built like a lot of friendships through the car community, especially in Irvine, where the car community is just like very big here, especially with the Cars and Coffee Irvine and just all those like exotic cars out here. So yeah, I'd say most of my friends are at least involved with cars. I did make most of my college friends in my like last year, unfortunately, but
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your racing team that you have, and then a little bit about the races that you do, because it's not like the typical, like I think of the Indy 500 and I think, okay, there's 500 laps, and but yours aren't like that. Like you have 6-hour races, you have 24-hour races, and there's 2 of you, right? You and another driver.
Four.
Oh, 4 of you.
4 of us. Yes.
Okay, so give us like the dummies version of the kind of races that you have.
So you mentioned Indy 500. To start in racing, there's open wheel and there's closed wheel. So the Indy 500 is all open wheel cars, and the series that I've raced in is all closed wheel sports cars. And additionally, in my series before in Pirelli GT4, you could only race cars that are currently in production for sale as street cars. So in other words, you could still buy the street legal version of the race cars that you see on track. And yeah, so now I'm competing in these 24-hour races, more endurance type races, in the Creventic 24-hour series this year.
Okay. And tell us about that. Like, what does a 24-hour race look like for you? Do you get any sleep? What is it like every hour you're switching back and forth? Like what is the format?
Mm-hmm. So the Dubai 24-hour this year was actually the first full 24-hour race that I have ever run. We did try to run it last year, but I don't know if you heard, it got rained out. No. Crazily enough. It rained like 5 or 6 inches within two hours, and the track was flooded, so they canceled it. But yeah, this year we came back with high hopes, a lot of determination, because we thought we were going to win last year. The sleep aspect depends on our strategy. For this year, they front loaded me, so I hopped in. I started the race. I was in for an hour and a half, And then I swapped with my teammate. He went in for an hour and a half, and then I hopped in again. And normally it's kind of that format. We basically try to run the car as long as it can on the amount of fuel that we have. And then just depending on strategy, it could change, like the driver lineup could change, but there are 4 of us total. So this year I was lucky enough that my other teammates took over the whole like through the night sessions. So I actually did get like 7 hours of sleep, but that could change at any time. I mean, last year I was actually supposed to hop in around like 4 a.m. So I only got like 3 hours of sleep. But yeah, again, it just depends on strategy.
Okay.
Oh man, I'm so curious about the strategy. I don't know if you can tell us or if that's just like telling all the things. You know how
She'll have to tell us.
relay racing and then like you have like, I don't know, your fastest person is the last person or something like that.
Yeah, it kind of goes along the same lines. We do want to run our fastest drivers near the end of the race if we need to, because at the end of this race, actually, we were 3 laps ahead, and we didn't really need to throw in our fastest drivers, but we did anyway. And I've actually ran really well at night, so I think for the future my team's going to run me during more of the night sessions. I think those college all-nighters definitely helped me out. So yeah, it just depends. Again, with changing conditions, there's this thing called code 60 where if a car crashes or goes off during the race and they need to clear it out, everybody they throw up this purple light and it's code 60 and everybody's going 60 kilometers per hour, and it's about trying to get the car in or planning the right strategy during those moments that really gives you that lead at the end of the race.
Wow.
That's
and then how did it go?
Well, we won. I was so proud. It was my first ever pro win. So I've come a very, very long way. I'm so proud of the team. It is not an easy feat to win a 24-hour because you have to do everything perfectly, basically, because, you could get a penalty during your pit stop, which would, put you back maybe like half a lap or so. And you really lose most of your time during the pit stops when you're changing tires, you're refueling, you're changing drivers. So again, everything has to be executed perfectly, and the team did exactly that.
That's interesting.
So basically, from what I'm understanding, you smoked everybody.
Yeah, we kind of did.
What is the equivalent of 3 laps, Samantha? How many miles is that, or
so
kilometers?
at Dubai, I believe the track was 2.5 miles, 3 miles.
Okay.
And it was a 2-minute, like 15, if I remember correctly. It was over 2 minutes per lap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So fast. I think, Samantha, I think in this world there's 2 people. There's the people who want to get in a race car and drive it, and then there's the people who just don't.
And we're all kind of a little crazy.
Right. I think it's great. I mean, you have a passion for something, you know what you want to do, and you're like going after it, which is amazing. Which leads me to you starting your own racing team. Now, is this typical for somebody to start a racing team, or no? This is just you. And how did it happen?
I don't think it's very, I guess, not normal, but not everybody starts their own race team. For us, it kind of happened from necessity. After my first race in 2016, the team we had rented a car with were unable to continue for the rest of the season, so we were kind of left with the race car, and we had to like set it up and operate it, and my dad and I had like no idea what to do. So we ended up teaming with the Whitmers, who Nick Whitmer is my co-driver now, and our crew chief was their crew chief at the time. But the following year, my dad and I decided we wanted full control over the race team. Basically, we wanted more control over the operations and the logistics. So we bought 2 BMW M235s and established a team in 2017 with Nick Whitmer as my teammate. Again, definitely not a normal thing for a 23-year-old to have full race team. So I'm very grateful for my dad for helping us set it up. And I was still in university at the time when it had started and was established. So at the time, my initial job was just to focus on my duties as a driver and kind of help manage the team on the side. But now that I've graduated with a degree in business, I've taken more of a central role, and I now help oversee, direction and team's PR and marketing.
That's so interesting. Okay, so I read an article about you, Samantha, and in it was about you being a female in this industry. And one of the things that stood out to me is that you said, when people were kind of saying, "Oh, well, she's young, she's a female, whatever," you said you're just going to let your actions speak for themselves. It was kind of like that whole mentality of, I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to do. And then, all of the results that will be kind of like my witness. And all. So talk to us about, I would call you a trailblazer in this area, and which is kind of, it's a very important, hard position to be in, because you're the one who's going to be getting like the brunt of the change that has to happen. I mean, somebody has to do it. But talk to us a little bit about, that being a female in this kind of typically male dominated sport and being younger, and what have been some of the obstacles you faced there, and how have they made you stronger? Have you learned anything from them?
I want to start with saying that, like over the years, it's been so incredible to see more and more women join the sport. And I have many role models nowadays, but when I first started racing, I didn't really have any female driver role models. There weren't that many of us. And it was really difficult not seeing, I guess, like prominent, successful women in the industry. And I really struggled with expectations and constantly doubted whether or not I really had the skills to succeed, because I didn't have anybody to relate to, or I didn't have anybody that looked like me, right? And it was really a process of learning, as I said before, to focus only on what I can control, and which is the task at hand. But I think this gave me a tremendous opportunity to define myself and success on my own terms. I've really grown to perceive criticisms as motivation, learn to have faith in my abilities and skills, and just not be afraid of mistakes, because I know that I'm always learning. And it's so great to see that along the way I'm able to inspire and empower others through these experiences.
Wow. Congrats. Honestly, well done. Because
Thank you.
You are such a role model. I think that might be hard to hear, but because you're like, I'm just living my life, but you're like actually, living your best life right now. Yeah. So I have a friend, she actually went to university from 14, and she could have graduated with an undergraduate at 17, but
Wow.
she stretched it out to 18. Anyway, and then I asked her, I'm like, how did you deal with the haters? Her response was like, I was just better.
I love that. I love that.
I still remember that. That's an awesome. Anyway, I just think the same for you. You're like, be better. You're like, anyway, I just wanted to know, like, you're a very articulate as well, and you're like so well rounded. You have like an economics degree, and like honestly, and you're going around like racing around the world. So what have you learned? Like, what is this? What are like the lessons that you're like, this is what I've learned?
Oh wow. I feel like I've learned a lot over the years. I think the biggest thing for me is not to be scared of failure. Because whenever you try anything new, you're going to fail a lot of times, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but you have to learn to be okay with that. You have to learn that failure means that you're trying. And when you fail, you eliminate a method that won't work. And from failure, we learn, we grow, and that's how we succeed.
That's a huge lesson. I just find that so many people in life are actually ruled by their fear. and they're not even willing to experiment or to try. So what has been something that you've actually, like, you failed at even, and then you've learned from it?
Yeah, I think definitely during like the middle of my racing career, I wasn't performing the best, because I was like so hard on myself again with like all the expectations and just doubting myself. And I really had to go over that hump and really like learn to like have faith in myself and build that confidence, because I think only you yourself can give yourself that confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I'm hearing that you're talking about is this idea of self-confidence and of like really understanding who you are and what you want to do, and letting that be your driving motivation, not what other people tell you should be doing. It's kind of like with you, when your dad, he introduced you to the sport, but you made the decision
Mm-hmm.
to pursue this. But now your dad is also, it sounds like, I mean, like a really big part of where you're at right now. And I think like this whole idea of self confidence and like that being something that we kind of grow into, like the more and more we do something. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times, Samantha, people when they face failure, they kind of eventually just give up, right? Like it may not be really sudden. It may be like over time they just say, you know what, this is too hard. Like I'm just tired of trying. So I'm wondering, okay, so you kind of went through this patch where you were doubting yourself. And then like what kept you going? And just like, I feel okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep trying. Like, is it something internal? Was it somebody else who was kind of pushing you? Was it the community? What was that?
It was both myself and I want to say my haters, because I
Mm,
felt the need to not only prove to myself that I could do it, but I wanted to prove all the haters wrong, because it was like I got all these like negative comments and I didn't want to give in to that.
mm,
So that really, I think, pushed me to be better and to really, really work hard.
yeah, that's interesting.
Wow.
Because that's the kind of, you're taking something negative and you're turning it into a positive, which I love. um so, and Samantha, and you're, being 23, like I love talking to you because I feel like, you can be a very inspirational voice to girls who are like, kind of having these big dreams now. And um what what would you tell like girls who have these big dreams, who maybe kind of feel uncertain about, where they're, if they could do it? What do they
Mhm.
need? What is the structure that people need? Do they need other people in their life? Do they need just a plan? Do they need just motivation, like internal? What is like the toolbox that maybe would help somebody?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a combination of all those things you mentioned, the motivation, your own self motivation. And I think having a good support system definitely helps. And I know that I've met some, or I've talked to some of my fans who, say that, like my parents don't approve of so and so, but I really love doing this thing. And I think it's about, you know, finding again your own confidence to push forward and to really pursue your dreams, because it's something that makes you happy. And I think that's really, really important. Um, yeah, I just want to tell all the girls out there to just continue chasing your dreams. I know that you can do it.
Yeah, yeah, good. Yeah. Well, what do you have coming up on the racing team, and then also on your just a businesswoman?
Yeah, so I we have two cars here in the US that we have, um, four new drivers, Bryson, Lou, Thomas, Ryan, and Joe. They will be competing in the SRO season starting March 6th, I believe, March 6th, at Sonoma. So I will be over there to oversee everything and make sure everything's going well. But on my side for racing, I have my next race in Mugello, Italy, March 26th, and it's a 12-hour race. Very, very excited. I've never been to that track before. So very excited to get back into it though.
Good. And Samantha, where can we find you on social media and online?
So my Instagram is Samantha Tan. It's Samantha A Tan. And then on Facebook, it's STR Samantha, Twitter, STR Samantha, and my website is www.st-racing.org.
Okay. And I'm thinking that maybe at some point you should offer classes for somebody like me who's like a newbie who just wants to get out there and go like 90 miles an hour. Like I don't have to go super fast.
Of course. I'd love to do that in the future.
Well, hey, I'm in Toronto, so I would love to like even hop in with you if that's okay. If like a fangirl can like come up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'd love to host some like winter driver training for my fellow Toronto people, because that's how I kind of started with, tracking cars, and the skills still come in handy today. So
yeah, I love it. Hey, I remember what I was gonna say. We are interviewing a couple people who work for NASA a couple of years.
oh wow.
Ago, and they are futurists, so they try to help us navigate moving into the future. You should listen to their podcast. Anyway, he actually wanted to be a race car driver when he was growing up.
That's awesome.
He said, "Hey, when you're interviewing Samantha, tell her she has a fan."
Aww.
Nick Skitlin. Yeah.
You guys should meet.
I'd love to meet someone who works for NASA. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, Samantha, it was great to have you on the podcast. And I'm inspired by, your zest for life and your optimism and you just being a go-getter and a trailblazer. And Ann and I are really cheering you on over here. And I know Ann was, when you won the Dubai race, she actually texted me, like she was really excited about your win. And so I just want you to know that, like, we're big fans over here.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. And we encourage you guys to go hop on her social media. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. And we'll see you guys next time.